everyone, this is Mrs. Tevis-Finn, recording from room 114. Welcome to the European Theater Part 2, D-Day to VE Day, opening up with a scene from Saving Private Ryan. So let's begin Operation Overlord, the code name. There needed to be an element of surprise, so FDR and Churchill did meet, after the Tehran conference in Cairo, December 4th through the 6th to plan this invasion. A couple things to note is that they placed decoys, and I'll show you on the map where, in a place across from the English Channel known as Pas-de-Calais, and that is where Hitler believed the invasion would occur. Our true target, as many of you know, is the Normandy beaches. So to note Pas-de-Calais, there was dummy equipment there, and then 60 miles south, spread along 5 beaches, was the Normandy site. So as we'll see in the film and in real footage, the geography of the Omaha beach plays a huge factor, and also these amphibious vehicles known as ducks. And also, you guys should look for the Pointe du Hoc bunkers. That'll also be in the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, and I also have real pictures of those. So, D-Day was June 6, 1944. And so the first thing you need to know is that a night attack was necessary. By the spring of 1944, you guys should put down more than 1.5 million American soldiers, 12,000 airplanes, and 5 million tons of equipment had been sent to England in preparation. So only one thing left was to pick the date, and this was key. So obviously it had to begin at night to hide the ships crossing the channel. Also, guys, the ships had to arrive at low tide so that they could see the beach obstacles, which you will see in Saving Private Ryan. The low tide had to come at dawn, right, so that gunners bombarding the coast could see their targets. Also, you guys will see paratroopers in the film. They were dropped behind enemy lines before the main landing on the beach, so they needed a moonlit night to see where they should be dropped. And most important, guys, weather was key. A storm would wreak havoc, on the airplanes, and high waves would be terrible on those ducks. So with all those requirements, there were a few days each month when they could think about planning the invasion. The first opportunity was June 5th to June 7th. His staff referred to any of the days that met those requirements as the letter D. So the invasion therefore came to be known as D-Day. So June 5th was impossible because there was clouds and strong winds and high waves. The channel could still be rough, but soon after, when there was a little bit of calm, Eisenhower looked at the forecast one last time, and shortly after midnight on June 6, he gave the final order. Okay, we'll go. As we'll see in the film, nearly 7,000 ships carrying more than 100,000 soldiers headed for Normandy's coast. And at the same time, 23,000 paratroopers were dropped inland, east and west of the beaches. Allied fighter bombers raced up and down the coast, hitting bridges, bunkers, and radar sites. At dawn, Allied warships began a tremendous barrage. Thousands of shells rained down on the beaches, code-named Utah, Omaha, Gold, Sword, and Juno. Okay, so please make sure from this slide, guys, you write down the names of those beaches. The landing here at Utah went well. The German defenses there were weak, and in less than 3 hours we had captured it. On the eastern part as well, the British and Canadian landings were going well. But really, guys, it's Omaha right here that came under the most intense German fire, and that is where the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan recreates. There was almost a surrender. It was that bad. So Omaha Beach, like I said, took the most intense fire from the Germans, and suffered the most casualties. You guys can see a cross-section here. It's not to scale, but it does show you some of the obstacles. And here from a survivor, he says, 200 yards out, we took a direct hit. Somehow or other, the ramp door opened up, and the men in front were being struck by machine gun fire. Everyone started to jump off into the water. The tide was moving us so rapidly we would grab out on some of those underwater obstructions and mines built on telephone poles and girders and hang on. We'd take cover and then make a dash through the surf to the next one, 50 feet beyond. So it's really these you'll see in the film that they hide behind and hold on to as they get off the ducks. So we'll see these as well in the film. These are the Pointe du Hoc bunkers, which are high above. If you guys remember from, they're up here, right? So they are, we're, we're just like, sitting ducks, so to speak. The bunkers are here, and we are trying to get onto shore here. So that's one thing we'll see also in the film. But General Omar Bradley, the commander there at the beach, began trying to make plans to evacuate. Slowly, guys, we had reinforcements, and it was known as the longest day. So more landing craft would arrive. Nearly 2,500 Americans were either killed or wounded at Omaha, and several other thousand of the from the British and the Canadians. So troops were pinned down. Nearly 3,500 American troops by the end had landed at Omaha, and another 2,300 had landed at Utah. So this was the largest amphibious operation in history to succeed. And so I have another picture from Saving Private Ryan, to just make the point that what the Allies were up against to really defeat the Nazis, was formidable. It was overwhelming. And so that's another way to sum up D-Day. So after that picture from the film, here is some real footage of Rommel on the beaches, and here's these anti-tank defenses. Again, just as we already looked at this, but I want you to know your 5 beaches. This just shows the coordinated effort the Allies had to make against Germany. Again, this looks like it's from the film, but it's not. This is real footage from the ducks. And again, remember I read you that primary source. They had to swim through the tides, and here they're hiding through those obstacles and then just trying to make it to the beach without being shot. So remember, those Pointe du Hoc bunkers were located up here in the cliffs, so the geography is really important. Took several days to secure the beach, and the Germans, some surrendered and became our POWs. So it's not over. 1 out of 10 Americans are killed or wounded, and again, Germans are not stopping. There was a breakdown in communications, and so Hitler believed that this was not the real assault on France, so he had saved some of his resources for the Allies. And so an example of this is the battle in the hedgerows. So the bocage is this, pictured here as this kind of checkerboarded fields. And so what the Germans did is, the farmers had used them to, fence in cattle and crops. As you guys can see, they are pretty thick, covered in shrubbery, enable the Germans to really defend their positions, to hide their tanks and mines. And so it took until the summer, July 25th, 1944. Remember when D-Day was? So 2,500 American bombers finally were able to blow a hole through the German lines here in the countryside, enabling the American tanks to finally break through and allow us to finally reach Paris, where the French resistance celebrated. Again, remember I said it's not over. So the Battle of the Bulge is Hitler's last offensive. That's the first thing you guys need to know. I showed you some of the hedgerows, but now it's winter. His goal, guys, was to cut off Allied supplies coming through the port of Antwerp, Belgium. That's important for resources. The attack began in December 1944. There was snow. The weather was bitterly cold, which I'll try to convey with some of the pictures. You guys should know that the Germans caught us by surprise, and as the German troops raced towards us, their lines bulged outward, hence the name of the battle. So as we are surrounded, Eisenhower orders General Patton to rescue us. 3 days, faster than anyone had expected in the middle of a snowstorm. Patton's troops finally hit the German lines. And even with the weather finally clearing, the Allied aircraft began to make their hits as well. So Patton here is pictured. I love this picture. It really shows his personality and his strength. And so 2 days after Christmas, Patton's troops had finally defeated the Germans, leaving them little resources to prevent the Allies from entering Germany. Um, this was massive losses for the Germans, 100,000 casualties, and they also lost a lot of their tanks and aircraft. If we have time, I would love to show you the footage of the Bulge. It's a famous battle, but here are some of the Belgians innocently killed during this offensive. Finding children, it's just horrible. Here are some of our troops, and just look at the devastation. You guys just note here what's written on this weapon. This might be able to kind of show you the conditions, but it's just bitterly cold and running out of resources. Here, our guys are capturing a Nazi flag. Look how young the soldiers are. And so Hitler finally realizes that his end is here. So he's in his Berlin bunker. He commits suicide on April 30th, 1945. He does name a successor, pictured on the next slide, General Admiral Karl Dönitz. And he is very famous for his war strategies with U-boats. He's a great leader. So he's smart enough to surrender to the Americans and the British, but he continues to try to fight the Soviets. And so May 7th, 1945, Eisenhower insists, though, on an unconditional surrender, and Germany is, has to accept the terms. So the next day, May 8th, becomes VE Day, or Victory in Europe. And there's a great picture of a newspaper and the celebrations, parades raining down, and they're celebrating here in London. And I have a final statement down below. The war's not over. How do we defeat Japan? So tune in next time to TEV as the Allies begin their island hopping campaign. Good night.